Good morning in Tijuana and good afternoon in York, United Kingdom. The Autonomous University of Baja California welcomes the conference Management Information Systems in Decision Making by Dr. Luisa Huatuco. A student from the University of York also joins us. Tamara Illich, who will present a case analysis. She is an undergraduate student now in year 3, the final year. Jyoti Shen, undergraduate student now in year 3, the final year 2. Juan Ramon Candia, PhD student in his 2nd year. Edith Dion Udo, PhD student in the 3rd year. Jie Chen, PhD student in the 4th year. We are also joined by students from the Faculty of Chemical Science and Engineering of the Industrial Engineering program. Welcome to all. This event takes place within the COIL Collaborative Online International Learning Program framework, has an internationalization strategy promoted by the Autonomous University of Baja California. We appreciate the acceptance of Dr. Luisa Huatuco to participate with us, and I am going to present her in a very, very general way with little of her curriculum. Dr. Luisa, reader in Operations Management at the University of York Management School. Her teaching experience includes undergraduate and postgraduate level teaching in Leeds for 12 years, in York, 6 years, and previously in Peru for 2 years. Her expertise areas are operations and supply chain management, business modeling, maths for business, management information systems, decision and information analysis. She is co-editor for the International Journal of Productivity and Performance Management by Emerald. And her research interests include high-value manufacturing, supply chains, complexity, sustainability, resilience, and disruptions. We are ready to start. Dr. Luisa, we hear you and welcome back.
Thank you very much, Karina. I hope you can see my screen. So as Karina mentioned, I'll be presenting on management information systems and decision making. And it's my pleasure to participate in this exchange. I think the idea of this is an online collaborative learning experience for those 2 countries between Mexico and UK. And I have been very lucky to be in Mexico a couple of times. Really enjoyed my time there for a conference and also for some seminars there. But thank you, Karina, for the invitation again. So today, just briefly on the agenda. So just cover some introduction. I'll give you some flavor of the offerings at York, especially the University Management School. And then we dive into management information systems modules and specifically on the area of decision making. I'll also cover a seminar that we gave in that course, which was on Netflix and big data. We'll give some examples of students' work, and Tamara, who is also attending today, will also present briefly on her project there. So thank you very much for the introduction. So I think you said it all, Karina, so I won't go over again my expertise and so on. I'll move on to the University of York. Basically, it's Russell Group University, which means that it's a research intensive organization where basically we give this priority to research like teaching, meaning that all our expertise that we gain from our investigation, from our dissertations and students and help, we try to channel towards our teaching as well to give the latest advances in knowledge to our students. It was established in 1963, and we have quite a lot of departments, as you can see. The last census that was last year says that we had 20,435 students. We are also very good in terms of teaching. So we have been awarded the Teaching Excellence Framework Gold Standard. So basically it is gold, silver, and bronze. So we are in the gold standard there. And for the Research Excellence Framework, which runs every 7 years or so, we were 14th in total and 10 for impact. For the management school, we have basically expanded and recently moved to a new building. So you can see there in the pictures, the outside of the building and the inside, which is just being open to our use since the summer. And we are basically hosting around 100 members of staff currently. And the number of students has grown dramatically in the last 2 years as well. So we have 400 undergraduate students, 850 postgrads, and 20 PhD students. And we are merging with social policy and social work to form the School of Business and Society. So basically following the vision of the university, which is the university for the public good. So trying to make use of our knowledge towards the service of our surroundings, especially in terms of social impact and environmental impact as well. There are a couple of links there that you might want to press and see the YouTube videos. They're more marketing sort of type of videos, but I have shared the presentation with Karina, so you can look at those in your own time. So if you're interested for following up in your future studies, there's some masters that are available at the University of York. And this is a list of the current ones. And there are some open days coming up, as you can see, 16, 17, and 18th of November. So you can go to that website and register your interest if you were to sort of expand your horizons, perhaps specialization in a particular area of management after you finish your degree. Okay, so we proceed towards the Management Information Systems module. I was a module leader during the last academic year, so 2020, 2021. It's a core module for the business and management students, both on the BSc and the BA, which are two programs quite particularly BA is quite big, around 200 students there. It's a year 2 undergrad module with 20 credits. And as you can see, it's taught in the spring term, which we call spring, but it happens from winter, January till about May, when it's actually spring by then. So Management Information Systems, it was a module that I led and taught with a couple of other colleagues last academic year. So the main sort of aim or learning outcomes of this module are stated here. We wanted to make a module that brought not only the internal view of the organization and how information systems help organizations internally, but we also wanted to make use of the latest developments on the social media, e-commerce, all these other things that have been obviously nowadays being available to all of us. But how does those type of new developments affect the organization? So we have both an internal and external view in the module. As you can see, we were looking at not only the applications of management information systems in modern organizations, but also the consideration of the technological, ethical, social, and political aspects, for example. But more importantly, we were looking for application of knowledge. So anything that we learned in terms of theory, in terms of methods, in terms of concepts, we wanted to apply to a real world case. So just some statistics of the course. So we have 183 students enrolled. We had to do everything online due to the pandemic. So this was spring term modules that started in January. As you can imagine, we had to switch quickly to online. All the lectures and seminars, a QA, question and answers were online as well. The assessment consisted on an individual reflective report of 2,500 words. And the students had to select 3 topics from the module and then apply to a case organization, as mentioned before. The idea being the reflective report, meaning that they don't only just apply the knowledge, but they also reflect on the knowledge acquired and say how the learning in the module has changed their use of management information systems and how they perceive the use of management information systems in the organization they have chosen from the point of view, personal point of view. So that reflection was very important in this assignment. So main organizations that were presented, so we had Netflix, a very common one, but very interesting, as we'll see as well in the seminar. Amazon, Microsoft, and the National Health Service. Here in the UK, we have the NHS. So very good results in terms of performance from the students. So we have an average of 62%. Most people passed, 96% pass rate, and 74% obtained a grade of 60 and above. So what we call a 2-1 performance in the UK. So it was particularly good in terms of the overall outcome of the performance there. So just to give you an idea of the topics that we covered. So here we have the week by week syllabus. So we cover, as we mentioned, the internal and external sort of view. And if you can see, there's some basics, introduction and basics in the first 2 weeks. But then we move on to some more of the contemporary issues such as e-business, ethical, social, international aspects, and information technology infrastructure. And we also complemented those lecture topics with pre-readings and seminars. So in the second half of the module, we also applied the different aspects of management information systems in contemporary organizations. As you can see, again, continuation with the e-commerce, with digital markets and digital goods. The idea of enhancing decision-making using the knowledge that has been managed with this management information system. And then we have seen some basics of systems analysis and design, which we call principles there. And the final week was on revision. So again, supplemented by pre-readings and seminars, this second half of the module. So our textbooks that we use, we recommended first of all, Lodon and Lodon as an essential text. I know there's several editions, and those were really fine to use as well. And then we complemented with Chaffee's textbook on digital business and e-commerce management, and with Wojciech et al. In business information systems for some topics, especially the social, environmental, ethical issues came from that third book. So how do management information systems help with decision making? So if you think about any organization that you might be involved with or you purchase from, right, say Amazon or any sort of organization where you buy your coffee from, Starbucks, say, how do they use information to their advantage? So the idea is that information is ubiquitous, it's everywhere. We sometimes don't ask ourselves, why are we being asked to do things like accept all the cookies when we are using a website? So organizations are actively using this information that comes through different channels in order to help their managers make decisions, sometimes in a way to increase their revenue, right? So doing the marketing target, campaign, and other things that they can improve in terms of their performance. But as we know, decisions become less structured as we move towards the top level of management. So it's not the same level of usage of the information systems at all levels. So you've probably seen this graph before, where we have a representation of the organizational structure as a pyramid. And on the base of the pyramid, you have the operational level. And the ones in charge, the people making decisions there, are the operational managers. As you move up in the organization in terms of hierarchy, you have knowledge level, and you have knowledge and data workers being served with this level of information. And as you move to the tactical level or management level, as it's called here, the middle managers will be the ones using this information. So typically in each of these functions, like marketing and sales, manufacturing, finance, accounting, human resources, they will have their own middle managers, you know, looking after each of those functions within the organization. And then finally, we have at the strategic level, the senior managers who are making high-level decisions for the organization, planning expansions, perhaps investment, disinvestment of things in terms of future plans for the organization. So there are different groups and different levels. So continuing with this analogy of the pyramid in the organizational levels, we have different types of information systems which are serving this purpose. So you can see here the process control systems, for example, at a very basic level of transaction processing, and they are the day-to-day sort of you know transactions that take place that can be controlled during those using those control systems. Moving towards the more tactical and strategic decisions will require different set of systems, such as executive information systems or decision support systems and information reporting systems. Those will actually use more graphical representations, summarize data, provide predictions, what if sort of scenarios, and so on, to help with the planning for the organization going forward. Whereas at the basic level, you have quite a lot of detailed data, and you can actually go and find specific transactions there, for example, in terms of sales or ordering in sales order or an invoice, for example. So what are the challenges for management using these different types of systems? So we have actually still this functional perspective. So each individual function, such as marketing and sales, will be managed individually from manufacturing, from accounting, from human resources. So sometimes systems don't really talk to each other, and integrating those functions and processes become challenging. So the idea is to break those silos and to allow for this more smooth integration of these different types of systems, and that they converse, or they actually, you know, sort of operate as a whole rather than as a set of parts. And then there is a lot of investment required for these types of systems that are required for the organization. If it's a corporate, it will be even more. Therefore, they have to provide some value for money, trying to justify that investment. But the idea is that it has to be guided by common objectives in order to make it, you know, work. So is it that the organization is competing on cost? Is it competing on quality? Is it competing on flexibility? What is it that is the overriding performance factor that is actually being looked at? And we mentioned the importance of integration to connect those different functions together, but that could be quite difficult and costly sometimes. So in this graph, we have a bit of a summary of what we've seen so far. So we have the different levels represented in the pyramid here, and we have seen the different types of management, but we also see the types of systems that are involved. So you have transactional processing systems here, management information systems in the tactical level, and decision support systems and executive support systems at the top here. So the idea is that these different levels contrast in terms of the types of decisions. For example, the decision uncertainty at operational level is very low, so there is quite a lot of certainty. But at the top level, the uncertainty is very high, so it's very difficult to know what's going to be right or wrong. Sometimes it's just out of experience, managers will actually make a decision, but based on what they have learned from the past. And for example, the decision risk, obviously if something goes wrong and that decision that's made at the top is wrong, then the whole organization could pay a price, which is really high. Whereas if something goes wrong at the operational level, perhaps it's sort of controlled and it could be found and it could be solved quickly. And then in terms of the decision problem scope, at the operational level is very narrow. So particular sales, particular invoice, particular type of system or transaction there. Whereas at the top level is broad and more general, and it could be very varied as well. We could come from anywhere. The problem that it comes up, and the senior managers have to be ready for making decisions quickly on that. And then we have different types of information requirements. So for the lower level, we have heavily internal requirements of information, because that's where the transactions occur at the operational level, and there's a lot of control there. But when it comes to the top level, there's a lot of heavy external information requirements. So looking at the typical SWOT analysis that you have, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So that, looking at the outside external requirements for information. So how do organizations actually use information systems to their advantage? One way to do that is using business intelligence and analysis for decision support. So basically, the data will come from the business environment. The business environment could be anywhere, such as social media data, could be call centers, could be their own suppliers, or it could also be governmental and economic data. So how does that data from the environment gets processed? So you need an infrastructure for the business intelligence in the organization. So you have databases, data warehouses, and then different analytic platforms. And those will, at the same time, will need some tool sets, right? So we have heard of the different ways of the analytics that are used, and those are due to we are using models or data mining techniques. There's machine learning as well, and very recently is the online learning, analytic processing tools, and big data analytics. And how do managers use this? Basically, it should be based on what is the overall strategy of the organization, what are the performance factors or indicators that they are aiming for, how do they balance different aspects such as quality and cost, for example, and what are the forecasts in terms of the demand or the sales, or what is driving the business to continue and to improve. And so here we have the different platforms that we mentioned, in this case, the different types of systems that we mentioned earlier: management information systems, decision support systems, and executive information systems. And then what we see as users is basically through the interface. So we see the output, basically reports, dashboards, the scorecards, and so on. And more recently, the social media, web portals, and so on, and in mobile devices. Right, so this is in general as an overview for management information systems. So I'm going to continue with the second part of the presentation, which is about a seminar as part of the module called Netflix and Big Data. So the reading that we gave to students for doing that seminar was developed by Kumar, and it was called Netflix Leveraging Big Data to Predict Entertainment Hits. And this is by the IBS Center for Management Research. And this is just a picture of the first page. So I'll leave you to read some of these excerpts from the first page. So basically, Netflix is sort of second guessing what the viewers are going to view even before they even start viewing. So that was the key point in this first page. So a bit of history. I'm not sure whether you are aware of Netflix as an organization. It started as a DVD subscription service. So for those that are of my generation, perhaps we know what we meant by a DVD. So it's a hard word, like looked like a CD, but it was meant for movies. And they were basically at the beginning, they were posted to people, and they will actually play on the computer. So there was a DVD reading device on the computer, or a home, a DVD player with a television. In 2000, Netflix introduced the personalized movie recommendation. So they start looking around, what the preferences are for each individual and how they choose the different types of film. In 2007, Netflix launched video streaming services. So no need for this hardware anymore, this physical CD or DVD, but you can stream online. And in 2010, it started with this global expansion. More recently, there were 3 categories of different streaming, so domestic, international, and domestic DVD. So in 2012, the financial performance was of Netflix was like this. So 33% video streaming in North America, had a lot of revenue, $3 million, net income of 17 million. And actually, because of the lockdown and everything, we have all been, at least I have, watching quite a lot of movies on Netflix. So the prices have actually soared for the customers such as us. And in this link, you will see a news item, which was basically saying that Netflix was increasing the prices due to the high demand as well. So how big data plays a part in Netflix? So basically, the organization tracks every search that a viewer makes, and also the rating that they give to their movies. They have preferences of different things, such as the ratings, the queuing up, also the other viewer-driven actions. So it's not just about what movie you watch, but also how you watch it. Like, do you stop at a certain point and leave and watch it at a later time? But they're also intriguing about why things work and why things don't work. So there's a lot of things that these behaviors that we do, like clicking something or stopping and watching, and all that is creating data on its own, is creating data en masse, and that's what is the big data analytics that is needed to make sense of it all. So ideally, with big data analytics, you will need to have a fast, better decision making, but hopefully reduce costs and offer new products or services, as it says in this graph. So the main driver for this, basically, how do they do this, was through the inventory of their data and the algorithms that they had in the organization to actually being able to process all these different clicks and different preferences and viewer ratings and so on. So it will have these algorithms which derive data from these multiple sources and factoring in the different behaviors. in order to provide these personalized recommendations. So Netflix was quite well known quickly about offering customers what they wanted to see, which is based on past experience, and working out the highest probability for that to be, successful or liked again in a way. So all this, like the homepage, genre, the subcategorization and sequence was all tailored to the customer. So in 2009, Netflix moved from the Amazon Web Services on the cloud, and they moved towards a bit more of for their own data centers to this Amazon Web Service on the cloud, so which provide a little bit more activity, more engine, more resource, and more power in a way to process this data. And they have this Amazon Elastic MapReduce, all these different tools to assess and stream the sessions and derive business metrics according to this. So as you can see, something that is actually perhaps appears not connected at all, through analytics, it can actually make sense and can derive some decisions for the managers, or could actually suggest decisions for the managers to take in order to achieve their objectives. However, there was some sort of moment when Netflix required more streaming content, and in order to appeal for the users, but now they were relying from HBO, Comcast, and other content owners that were not as reliable to provide that content to Netflix anymore. So they decided they were going to do their own originals, and that was a bit of a gamble, obviously, because they haven't done it before. But they have this massive amount of data, and they wanted to identify which of these different possibilities of making a film or of their own would be good to bet on. And what they did is they went for their data repository and mined it so that they can actually get a good confidence that they will actually achieve higher ratings in viewers and will actually have substantial return for their investment. So they have these exclusive rights at the investment of $100 million US, and it was a success, basically because they had that data repository where they have analyzed and checked, and the probability was very high that it will be liked and will be viewed, and therefore the demand will be there. So House of Cards was a show that they chose, and it was a very good success. So these are the questions that we gave to students for the seminar that I mentioned. So I'm basically linking big data to Netflix's strategy, how do they capitalize to the different types of investment, and the how do they know about success probabilities and so on, and what aspect of big data could be seen as controversial, and the pros and cons of the algorithm used, and thinking ahead what could be next for Netflix. So these are examples of student work. We had a Padlet, and for each question we designed for each seminar, so students could actually put their own thoughts into each box. We divide them into groups. We did it on Zoom and did subgroups in Zoom, and then each group had a question to target, and that allowed for people to contribute more to the seminar work. And this is another screenshot of that Padlet tool that we use, and it's actually could be quite good to engage the students in terms of the interaction and explaining things and linking it to the reading again. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to ask Tamara to please share her experience with the assignment.
So I'm Tamara. I'm currently studying at the University of York and I'm in my final year. I'm doing business management BA. Just a quick question for the presentation. Should I share my screen or can I?
Yeah, if you can try. Karina, is Tamara okay to share the screen?
Tamara is co-host now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, 1 second. I'm sorry. I don't think I can.
Yeah. If
I'm
you
not a
open
host.
it, like, you want me to share it for you? I mean, I need to open it in my computer now.
Yeah.
I'll go and check. Yeah. So let me.
Oh, actually,
Can you?
is it sharing?
Yeah, it's starting showing. Yeah, it's showing now.
Perfect. So yeah. Is it working?
Yeah. Can you put your
Give a quick
presentation mode?
introduction.
Mhm.
And so what I'll talk about is a little bit about my assignment and especially my approach. So I wrote about Netflix, specifically Netflix originals, and the topics I covered were e-commerce, knowledge management, and a little bit of ethics, but primarily focusing on e-commerce and knowledge management. Here are kind of the table of content, what specifically how I structured the essay, which I think is the most important part when approaching is figuring out the structure, because for this module it is very strict, I found. And so a lot of planning needs to be done ahead. So here you can see that there's a lot of section. There's an abstract, introduction, literature review, case study, critical discussion, reflection, conclusion, and a reference list. So I think for me, this was the most sectioned essay I've had to write so far. My specific research question was how technology developments ease the creation of Netflix originals. So in the abstract and introduction, what I spoke about was how, well, I first introduced what the essay will talk about and gave very broad definitions of what the chosen topics were. So it's very kind of broad, general, doesn't go in any depth, similar for the introduction. I just kind of gave an overview of what Netflix is, presented the research question. And so this part is fairly straightforward, fairly simple, but then it becomes a little bit trickier with these other ones where you're supposed to discuss the literature review and case study. It seems very similar, however, it was very different. The literature review is purely about the chosen topics, and you should only focus on that and introduce relevant theories from the course. And I will emphasize that you should focus on topics that you choose. A lot of students I know tend to try and find topics that the lecturer really likes and then tries and implement those. But that makes it really hard if you don't really enjoy the topics or if you don't really understand them. The case study then gives a deeper insight into the company and slightly links to the topics chosen, but not with going in depth. So it will offer a service that the company does that will be linked to the topic. So for me, that was Netflix originals. I didn't talk about necessarily the main link, but I spoke that personalization and collection of data allows for them to create original content. And then the critical discussion is the point where you are really supposed to link those two together. By what I've done was I chose the certain theories in literature review, and then in the case study, I analyzed the approach of the company, their business strategy, and then I found overlaps between certain theories, general theories, and the business strategy of Netflix. And then I kind of like compared, talked about disadvantages, advantages, and differences and similarities between the theory on its own and Netflix's approach. And so, yeah, that's pretty much kind of the most harsh outline of how the section should be. And so a couple of tips before you start, something that I found really useful for this module, especially, I mean, I know you're supposed to always stay on track with your work, and but for this one, it is really important that you find topics that you like and that you start way earlier. Because I found this essay was very research-based. It can be tricky because you're researching not only theories, but you're researching a specific company. So you need to kind of make sure you have enough information. It happened to me that I thought I found a company I really liked, and then when I tried to find information on certain MIS topics, I couldn't find enough to actually write an entire essay on. So what I did was I started researching news concerning e-commerce and knowledge management, and then I found that Netflix tends to appear quite a lot in the main news. Planning is really important. Each section has a clear purpose. So it is important. I think it's easy points really to make sure that, you know, that you plan out the sections and that you really convey what the section is supposed to do in your essay. And that will also help you a lot. At first, I thought it was limiting my creative freedom, but then it was really helpful because there is a lot of information on MIS. And it is hard to stay on track and not go off topic. And so the sections really allowed you, so when you're rereading your essays, reread it as a whole, but also make sure to reread it as sections individually. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. Good luck.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much, Tamara. So yeah, so there we are. I think it's probably the last slide I had is was for questions. So yeah, so if you have any questions, please let us know.
Thank you for the way Tamara presents the case study. Very interesting. It will be very helpful for our students to have an idea of what is expected for their particular analysis, which will be about their companies that also apply management information systems. Now, do you have the opportunity to ask about Dr. Luisa presentation and experience and Tamara presentations? You can raise your hand. Do you have any questions?
You can type in the chat as well, so we can translate if you want to do.
Yes, you can write in the chat your questions. No? Well, we can wait some minutes for you can think about your questions. Well, I have some questions for you. We know industrial engineering is an engineering profession that is concerned with the optimization of complex processes, systems, or organizations by developing, improving, and implementing integrated systems of people, money, knowledge, information, and equipment. Industrial engineering is central to manufacturing operations. Why should an industrial engineer know about management information systems?
Yes, it's a good question. Thank you, Karina. So I think because of the current developments, we cannot completely now rely on isolated knowledge. We need the interdisciplinary knowledge as well to carry out our own professional, sort of activities. And it's become ubiquitous now. We have it on our phones, we have it on our desktops, on our iPads, on our iPhones. So it's completely natural in a way that perhaps our students don't question it anymore because they are used to it, they see it. But I include myself as being from a past generation where I saw it progressing from, say, the standalone systems towards the network systems, and then to the more now on the cloud systems. And all this time is just being making things more to share more easily in terms of information, but also it raises questions such as security, cyber issues. So it doesn't come always as a positive. So that's one thing I always wanted to give my students to see the downsides as well as the good sides of information systems. So not just as a positive, but also being aware of why and how our data and information and obviously is used by organizations to their advantage, but being aware of it, I think that makes a difference. And for managers is essential now. So I don't think there will be any organization these days who will operate without these automated systems anymore, unless they were very small and they all rely on a couple of people, say. But even then, they belong to a consortium of organizations who share knowledge, who share, that sort of experience and background in the sector. So I think it's embedded in every profession now. So it's become part of the training, and that's something that we will have to live with, and God knows what's coming next in terms of the artificial intelligence and all these robots and everything else, and we just have to learn to obviously being aware of the positives and negatives, but also how to utilize them to the organization's best advantage.
Your program of management and our program of industrial engineering have a very similar profile of students when we're talking about decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in the digital era,
Mm-hmm.
and the industry 4.0,
Mm-hmm.
where all the decisions needs to big data and the modeling of the data to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Another question.
Mm-hmm.
What are the challenges related to management information systems?
So the new challenges, I think I mentioned already about ethics and how the usage of these systems, which are now part of our lives and are part of our organizations, how do we use it in a way that is not, damaging other aspects of our life? So I think one of the challenges is not to get too excited about them for the sake of it, right? I know as an engineer, you create something, you probably do something, and the end becomes, the means become the end. But just try to keep that balance of the overall side. So not just because you can do something, you can actually, use something, but be very critical and question yourself. What are the possible uses of this new technology or these new systems available to us?
Here is a
Mm-hmm.
comment in the chat. Karen,
Oh,
you can read, Lisa.
Oh, yes, thank you. So thank you, Karen, for your questions. So in all companies, it's helpful and convenient to use management information systems and big data processing, or there will be any exceptions. Oh, yes, so that's a very nice question. Thank you. Yeah, so I think perhaps not all organizations will need to use big data analytics, for example, but it all depends on the overall vision, mission, and values of the organization. So that will drive the tools and the usage of whether big data analytics is convenient or something else. And I think Karina mentioned Industry 4, for example. There are different tools there as well that could be used. So it has to be tailored to the organization rather than use it for the sake of it. That would be my advice. But we got the expert here. I think we got Eddie. Eddie's doing research on big data analytics. Maybe she wants to say something. She's hearing us. We got 3 PhD students in the in the presentation. So we go Juan Ramon. Perhaps you want to say something, Juan Ramon, about your research project. They're all in digital, so the supply chains. Let's see if they are on. Juan Ramon, Eddie, and Jin Cheng. I'm not sure if Jin Cheng is around. Ah, yeah, yes, he's around as well.
Hi, Dr. Luisa.
Hi, Jin. how are
I
you?
I just heard this session is very interesting, and I think I got a question for you. That is, it's very strange that when I attend a session like this,
Mhm,
the hosts tend to talk more about the very big companies and their strategies.
mhm.
So I'm wondering, from a broader perspective, so how's the current situation regarding the information system construction of the, I mean, the SMEs or you know, the small and medium companies? Is there any very big difference between those small features and big features?
Mhm. So in terms of the different types of companies, the small medium enterprises are in a way more agile, and they're ready to learn, and they share more. We find in mobile platforms, for example, so they engage more in these types of systems, which are more user friendly. And there are obviously, as you know, many platforms that are free to use, and they take advantage of that as well. Whereas large corporations, they might have more resources, more investment in the corporate sort of type of systems, such as ERP, enterprise resource planning systems, but they are you know, expensive, and they need certain training, and sometimes the difficulty is the actual change of mind of people using those systems. So it is nice to have the system, but whether people will actually adapt to it and use it straight away is very hard without training and support. So that's also one aspect of the human aspect that perhaps as engineers sometimes we forget. We tend to leave it aside, but bringing in that you know, aspect of training and support before we can, you know, sort of introduce a new system.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned a lot about you know, the individual aspects and the influence from the like engineers and things like that. It's very interesting, you know, if there's more research about, you know, to know the in-depth relations between the technologies and the individuals, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so Karine is asking about how to deal with the high cost of information management, the alternatives for the small and medium-sized companies. Yes, so there are some aspects where there are some collaborations between organizations. As mentioned before, there's some consortiums. Sometimes they organize themselves into sectorial consortiums of, say, food SMEs. So whoever provides, you know, in that sector, they get together and they form a group. So they share the resources, the cost, and the benefits as well. There are some research projects where universities are involved as well. So yes, so as Karina said, yes, there is a support from universities too. Mainly in the form of the knowledge exchange and the what we call the impact sort of engagement, business engagement. Yeah, so trying to bridge that gap with the high costs and the barriers, you know, trying to minimize those barriers is important, but it can only happen with collaboration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. Any more questions or comment? No. Well, it's 11 o'clock and all of this event. Well, thank you very much for your comments. Now we conclude this international event. We appreciate the presence of our academic peers from your university, and we hope to continue these collaborations. Many thank you out for your attendance at this event.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you, Tamara, and thank you all for
Here is one more comment. Now, without Adobe, the presentations are very well explained and entertaining.
Thank you. So there will be some more of these sessions. You will let us know when, perhaps the PhD students could present if you were to have other sessions, and where your students are also presenting. Karina, you tell us when it's suitable for you as well.
Okay, I like to open the section to give the opportunity to participate in Spanish. I can they can speak a little more. Are you agree?
Yeah, I could do that. Well, I know some of my.
I stopped recording.
Yeah.